I stay firm because I believe that silence protects the oppressor, and investigative journalism for me is about breaking that silence.
Welcome to Transparency Talks, the podcast that brings you conversations about truth, transparency, and trust. I'm your host, Winston Mwale, and today we have a very special guest joining us from Zambia, Annie Zulu, an award-winning freelance investigative journalist from Lusaka, Zambia. Anne has dedicated over 7 years to uncovering critical issues related to human rights, gender equality, and environmental justice. Her work has been featured in renowned outlets including The Continent, Makande Center for Investigative Journalism in Zambia, Africa Brief in Malawi, and many others. She has earned prestigious awards including the Makande Eminent Prize for Investigative Journalism and the Africa Safety Journalist of the Year Award. Anne, welcome to the show. First things first, tell us about your background and what led you to focus on investigative journalism, particularly in the areas of human rights, gender equality, and environmental justice.
Yes, as you've earlier introduced me, I am an investigative journalist, a freelance investigative journalist based in Lusaka, Zambia. What led me to investigative journalism and particularly reporting on issues to do with human rights is that I have always been this curious person with a huge passion for truth-telling. My passion started with a deep desire to give a voice to the voiceless, especially women and communities that are often overlooked. Journalism for me, particularly investigative journalism for me, became a way of challenging those in power and giving a voice to the voiceless. Yes, thank you.
That's a great way of telling us your background. Now, out of interest, I've noted that your investigative work has earned you numerous prestigious awards, including the Makande Eminent Prize in Zambia and the Africa Safety Journalist of the Year Award. Can you tell us about a particular investigation that stands out to you and the impact it had?
Yeah, so I would say all the investigative stories that I've done have really had an impact. But if I was to single out one, I would go for my latest investigation, which I did on human trafficking of Zambian women to Pakistan. So the story was published last month. It's been a month. It was quite a very emotional story. I would say one of the most challenging stories that I've ever done in my entire career. So the impact was quite huge. Government responded just right after the story was published. They responded. They managed to bring back the ladies that were stuck in Pakistan. It all happened just within a month. And a lot of organizations, international organizations, reached out to me wanting to know how they could come in and help. And also, even other women who are in the similar situation, they also reached out to see how maybe probably I could help or connect them to relevant authorities. And not only that, it also gave the survivors a voice, because most of them, they couldn't They couldn't come out in the open and share their stories. But ever since the story came out, quite a number of them, they've gained that courage and they are free to talk about what happened to them. So that story has really been impactful.
Wow, wow, wow. And you were nominated as a finalist for the 2024 Save the Children Global Media Awards and also a 2024 Global Investigative Journalism Network Fellow. How have these recognitions, fellowships, awards shaped your approach to journalism, particularly investigative journalism?
So I remember in my early days as a journalist, I never really thought that I would write stories that would be recognized worldwide. So for me, being a finalist in an international competition like such as the Save the Children Global Media Awards, it was such a honor. And these were the awards yesterday, last year. They were the first. They were the first media awards for the organization, and for me to make it to the finalists, it was indeed a great honor. I was so excited about it because this was a worldwide competition. There were a lot of people, a lot of brilliant journalists who entered for that competition. And for me to make it to the finalists, ish, I couldn't believe it. It was, for me, even just making it to the finalists, that was a win for me, even though I didn't get the actual awards, but just being a finalist and competing with renowned journalists, it was quite interesting and nice. And on the other part, the GIJN, which is the Global Investigative Journalism Network, has really shaped my investigative journalism career. It has opened so much doors and opportunities for me. I've created a number of networks. I've met and collaborated with journalists, some of them who I used to just probably maybe follow on social media. So it has really helped me, and I've learned quite a lot from the trainings. So it has been very helpful. That's what I can say.
Yeah, and you are a freelance journalist. So I was wondering, as a freelance investigative journalist, you face unique challenges compared to those working for established media houses. How do you navigate the financial and security challenges that come with independent investigative work?
Okay, yes, I must admit, Winston, that being a freelance journalist is it's quite challenging, and yes, it also has got its own advantages, such as I'm able to pursue whatever kind of story that I need, that I want to pursue. But as you have rightly put it, it has its own challenges. And one of the biggest challenges is that it's like you work in isolation. You don't have the backing of a newsroom, which can sometimes be, can be so lonely and challenging, as well as, issues to do with finances. If you want, let's say you want to go and maybe interview someone, you need, of course, transport, fuel for you to get to that place. So all those costs, they fall back on you. And so for me, how I've been able to navigate through and still stand tall is that I've learned to collaborate with other colleagues in the industry and also media institutions here in Zambia, as well as in the region, in the Southern Africa region, and even outside Africa. So I've formed sort of like partnerships with these journalists and media institutions, and that has really helped me. So it's easy, it becomes easy for me. Let's say I want to get my story published. I would just pick up my phone and call a few media institutions to ask them if at all they could publish my story. And usually the feedback that I get from them is positive. And also I've learned to take advantage of, opportunities like fellowships and funding. There's funding out there. There are a lot of organizations that are willing to fund journalists. So if you are a journalist and you have a very good story that you think needs to be taught, there are a lot of resources out there. I would give an example, for women in media, they actually offer, a number of trainings, sometimes even grants. There are all those calls. Yes, that's what has really kept me going. Thank you.
Now, as you have rightly put it, your work spans multiple renowned outlets, for example, the continent, to the CGTN, to local Zambian media. Now, I want to understand, how do you tailor your investigative stories for those different audiences while maintaining their core impact?
Thank you so much. So I work hand in hand with editors, and usually what I do, I wear the story that I want to do. Okay, because there are instances whereby I could have a very good story, but sometimes being a journalist, sometimes, especially the one that deals with investigative stories, can be a challenge. You find that maybe I have this interesting, investigative story that I want to be published in a Zambian media outlet. But again, if it's too sensitive, you find that the Zambian media will not be willing, maybe to publish it because of the issue of maybe fear of being sued or taken to court. So they try by all means they'll look at the story. Of course, it's not every story that they reject, but that's one thing that I've come to observe. They'll look at the story, and if it's quite sensitive, they'll probably not want to air it, which I understand because we have all these laws in Zambia that are quite harsh and injuring the freedom of expression. So instead of using the Zambian media, now that's where I try to take it to maybe to a regional media outlet, because I know that they would probably publish and pick it up. I've done this with Africa Brief and the continent, including other international media outlets. So yeah, I work hand in hand with editors.
All
I
right.
hope I've
So,
answered your question.
yeah, thanks so much. And I have also noted, Anne, that you focus heavily on gender equality issues. So, what specific challenges do female journalists face in Zambia and maybe the broader African context? And how do you overcome them in your work?
Okay. Thank you so much, Winston, for that very important question. Ooh, I have a lot to say on this. Firstly, it's not easy being a female journalist, and not to talk of being an investigative journalist who is female, especially, in a space where I'm expected to be quiet or agreeable. But one thing I can tell you, Winston, is that I have learned to stand my ground. I've come to realize that great work like this, like what I do, isn't always welcomed because it challenges power, it exposes pain, and it makes people uncomfortable. Nobody wants their what they do in the dark to be out there. But one thing that has really kept me going in this field is that I always remind myself that whenever I'm pursuing an investigative story as a female journalist, my voice isn't just mine alone. I put it at the back of my mind that I carry the voices of many, many people that can't speak for themselves. And most of these people are marginalized communities. These are mostly children, women, vulnerable people. I stay firm because I believe that silence protects the oppressor. And investigative journalism for me is about breaking that silence. So I always stand my ground, and I always tell myself that I am the voice of the voiceless. I'm here to speak on behalf of vulnerable people. Thank you.
I am the voice of the voiceless, says Anne. Anne, as someone who has achieved significant recognition in investigative journalism, what advice would you give to aspiring journalists, particularly young women who want to pursue investigative work in challenging environments?
One important advice that I can give to every journalist out there that wants to venture into investigative journalism is that stay curious and stay brave. Ask the hard questions, even when it's uncomfortable. Don't be afraid to dig deeper and tell stories that others might want to avoid, because currently the world needs a lot of investigative journalists. We're in a time where investigative journalists are needed, so we need more brave journalists who are ready to tell the stories that matter, who are ready to challenge powers, shake tables, and possibly break them. Thank you.
Yeah, and possibly break the tables. Finally, for our listener who may not be familiar with the state of press freedom in Zambia, can you give us a sense of the current landscape and what needs to change to better support investigative journalism in Zambia?
Okay, the current state of press freedom in Zambia, I would say it's not very good. Of course, we've made some little bit of progress as a country. In 2023, we saw for the first time ever the president signing into law the Access to Information Bill, which is meant to protect the freedom of expression and freedom of the press. Everyone was very excited about it. Everyone who works in the media was so excited about it, including the general public. But later on this year, the president once again signed another bill, actually two bills, which are the Cyber Security and Cyber Crime Acts. And when you look at these new laws that were signed, they are, of course, according to the government, they are meant to protect national security. But on the other hand, these laws are injuring press freedom, because what is happening currently, because of those laws, journalists are intimidated, they are harassed using these same laws. There are instances where police have stormed a radio station or TV station simply because they featured someone from an opposition political party on their radio station or TV station. We've had incidents where a journalist is told to delete pictures or interviews that they have recorded. And again, when you look at the same law, the cybersecurity law, you will find that now it's a crime for you as a journalist and for anyone else to record a conversation without permission. And that's what we do in investigative journalism. So now when you record a conversation as a journalist, it can land you in jail. You can spend 5 years or more in jail. Generally, I would say press freedom in Zambia is not good, in as much as we have this law. Even the same law, the Access to Information Bill, when you look at it from the time it was signed, into law, there hasn't been any implementation. Yeah, that's what I can say on that.
Okay, so very briefly, Anne, suppose our listener would want to read your work, to watch your work, where would they go?
Okay, I have a YouTube channel because I also do documentaries. So people can access my work, my documentary works on YouTube, which is Annie Zulu TV. I'm also on LinkedIn, Annie Zulu. And I also run a blog which seeks to, promote women and issues affecting women and marginalized communities. The name of the blog is Zambian Feminine Pages. I am also on Facebook, so people can follow me there. I always share links to my work.
Oh, all right, Anne, it was a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored, and I'm glad I did this.
All right, thanks so much. All right, and that's a wrap up for this episode of Transparency Talks. We are grateful to Annie Zulu, all the way from Zambia, for joining us today and sharing her insights on investigative journalism, her award-winning work, and her dedication to uncovering truth in the areas of human rights, gender equality, and environmental justice. Annie's work reminds us that independent, fearless journalism plays a huge role in holding institutions accountable and giving voice to the voiceless. And her recognition through numerous awards and fellowships demonstrates that impactful journalism, even in challenging environments, can achieve both local and international recognition. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a rating or review on your favorite postcard platform. And be sure to join us again next time for more conversations about truth, transparency, and trust. This has been Winston Mwale, your host, and bye for now.